Hi, ma'am.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. What about you?
I'm doing good too.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So, ma'am, can you just give us a quick introduction of yourself?
So I'm a clinical psychologist, and I lead the clinical psychology program for the Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences. As a part of my program, I do supervisions with clinical psychologists across centers. And I also had the Fortis School Mental Health Program, which is our national school mental health program that we do. So we are associated with schools, work a lot with schools on various programs we've been doing. A lot of you have been there, young students, who probably watching us. So, yep, that's
Yeah,
what we've been doing.
yeah, exactly. All right, ma'am. So let's begin. So before we proceed with the educational requirements and the criteria, I really want to know that what intrigued you to choose psychology as your subject? Like, what interested you to become a psychologist?
Okay, so it's an interesting one because I never thought that I would in the initial.
Yeah.
I've been a very creative person, so which is why I wanted to go into art or maybe perhaps music and make that as my part of my career. But in my times, at that time, to make a career out of this was very, very difficult. Times have changed a
Okay.
lot. We have a lot of opportunities now, but at that time it was, a little too difficult. And
Yeah.
seeing music and art as a career option was also sometimes, like still, I mean, parents do tend to see when it comes to psychology, taking it as a career option. There are so many myths
Yeah.
and around that we are going to bust today. So this is what happened, and my parents suggested, both my parents, my father had studied psychology. My mother also had a bit of a background in that. So which is why they suggested
Okay.
that why don't you take psychology? And I said, okay, that sounds very interesting. I asked him a few questions, and I said, okay, fine, I'll go ahead with that. And I think in my third year of my college, when I did counseling psychology, I was in love with the subject, and I thought this is my where my passion lies. And from there is when I took on and did my masters, and then I did my MPhil, and that's how the journey
Okay.
went.
That's amazing, ma'am. So, ma'am, so let's begin with the educational requirements to become a psychologist. So, the people who are in 11th or 12th, what would be the right steps to become a psychologist?
So you can do any course in 11th and 12th, in the sense subjects
Okay.
that you can pick any subjects. I had commerce when I was in 11th and 12th, because in my time I did not have arts as a subject in my school. So, a lot of
Okay.
students tend to have this question whether you can do science and then go into psychology, whether you can do commerce and then go into psychology, whether you can do arts and then go into psychology. Yes.
Yeah.
And if you have the option of taking psychology in your 11th and 12th, perfect, go ahead and take it. After that,
Yeah.
you do your bachelor's. I did my bachelor honors, and but you can also do a bachelor's or a BSc in psychology again, whether it is applied, whether it is just psychology, it does not matter. The
Okay.
difference is only just in the curriculum a little bit here and there, but in your career path it does
Okay.
not make any difference. You can choose any one of them.
Okay.
And then you
All
do
right.
your masters, and in your
Okay.
masters again, you choose your specialization. If you want to go into
Hmm.
organizational behavior, which is working with
Okay.
companies and organizations as an organizational psychologist, then then
Hmm.
you choose OB. And your again, bachelor's to masters, you continue to take that path of choosing OB. If
Okay.
you want to go into counseling or clinical psychology, then you have to take counseling psychologist as your specialization in bachelor's in third year, and in masters again,
Hmm.
clinical or
All
whatever
right.
other specialization that you get. And then to be a
Okay.
clinical psychologist, you have to do your
Hmm.
MPhil from a university
Okay.
that gives you a recognition from RCI, which is a Rehabilitation Council of India, that licenses you
Okay.
to be a clinical psychologist. But
All right.
after your master's, you can still work as a counseling psychologist, whether in schools, whether in hospitals, or you can have your
Okay.
own setup as well. But you will be working as a
Hmm.
counseling psychologist after your master's. The difference is that when you do your MPhil in clinical psychology, you're also getting
Hmm.
trained to do a lot of psychodiagnostic testing, and which is why your
Okay.
license is very important. So when you are
All
giving a
right.
test report, you're testing a child on learning disability, or you're testing a child
Okay.
on any of the emotional issues, behavioral issues, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or autistic spectrum, all of these developmental disorders that we look at, or even giving a report to an adult, for whether it
Okay.
is emotional aspects, whether it is neuropsychological aspects, your reports are
Hmm.
valid. You are
Okay.
certified to give those reports, and which is why your
All
license is
right.
very important.
All right. So, ma'am, there are many people who are asking that if they have bachelors in different subject, like somebody mentioned BCom. So, what about them? Can they pursue psychology as their career?
It's always good to have a clear cut career path from the beginning. So if you have decided that you want to do a BCom and then you decide that it's not helping you, again it depends upon
Hmm.
the university if they are able to take
Okay.
you, because in masters you do have um, entrance, whether it is
Okay.
in any of the universities, whether it is due, whether it is private universities. In masters you do generally tend to have an entrance exam, until unless you
Okay.
are choosing one university from the beginning, which is
Hmm.
like you're doing a bachelor's and a master's and then an MPhil. So that
Yeah.
university gives you the benefit of not taking entrance at the master's, but you have to take
Okay.
an entrance if you are after bachelor's pursuing your master's in psychology. So if you're a BCom student, you can appear for the entrance, but then again you'll have to
Yeah.
prepare very hard, and then based on the interview it
Yeah.
depends whether they will be taking you or not. From a private
Hmm.
university you can still do it, perhaps. I mean, again, it depends upon how they choose the students. Again, the benefit would
Yeah.
always go to a psychology student, until unless you have a very good background and knowledge yet despite being a BCom student or
Yeah.
a science student, then of course you can go
Yeah.
ahead still.
Thank you so much for answering that, ma'am. So, ma'am, in psychology also there are many fields. So, can you just tell us what are the some types of fields in psychology where they can make up their career?
So there is, like I said, so I'll begin one by one. So one, I will
Okay.
start with clinical psychology. I'm a clinical
Okay.
psychologist. I have done my MPhil
Yeah.
from RCI, licensed university, which is Amity. Before that, I did my master's from Delhi University. Before that, I did my
Okay.
bachelor's from LSR. So this is what
Ma'am,
have my
even I'm from
everything.
LSR.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry to interrupt
So,
you.
so this is what my career path have been. Then, so now I'm working as a clinical psychologist, and I'm RCI licensed, and I can do
Okay.
testing, and I can do therapy
Hmm.
work. This is what I can do. After
All
your
right.
bachelor's and your master's, you can work as a counseling psychologist. Counseling
Okay.
psychologist in a hospital setting,
Hmm.
you see patients from various other departments, whether it is
Hmm.
gynecological department, whether it is with pediatrics, whether it is in dialysis. So you work in integration with counseling related concerns in all of these other
Hmm.
departments. You provide counseling services to inpatients. You also look at
Okay.
working with patients pre and post surgery. You look at addressing their
Okay. Yeah.
concerns while they are in
Yeah.
the hospital setting. So providing them all the
Hmm.
psychological comfort that they require in that time period. And sometimes one also
Yeah.
sees comorbidity over there. If a client is, or if a patient is having diabetes, may also be stressed out and may also be showing signs and
Yeah.
symptoms of stress, may also be having some mental health concerns like anxiety, or maybe depression if he's been diagnosed with. So again, as
Yeah.
a psychologist, as a counseling psychologist, you work on those aspects as well. So that's
All
what you
right.
do after that. Then you can also work in schools after your masters. You
All
can
right.
work as a counseling psychologist in schools, and again work with students on various aspects.
Yeah.
You also look at early identification by working with
Hmm.
teachers and the school,
Yeah.
integrating that part where you identify at
Yeah.
an early level. You also work on some of the basic issues that you can work in terms of behavior, learning, motivation of a student, bullying issues that happen. There are a gamut of issues that students face when it comes to schools. And as a counseling
Yeah.
psychologist, as a psychologist working in schools, there's a huge role that psychologists can play over there. And then wherever
Yeah.
required, work with an expert outside. So if it's an assessment which is
Okay.
required, then you refer it to a psychologist outside. If there is any other
All
regular
right.
therapy which is required, which is more intensive in nature, and in a school setup it may be difficult, you again refer them to an expert outside. That's how you
Okay.
work. Then even school psychologists, there is a specialization in school psychology which you can do.
Yeah.
And once you do that, not only do you work in behavioral aspects, but you also work on helping students fill that gap in the achievement process
Hmm.
that is there. So you're actually working with
Okay.
parents, you're working with the
Hmm.
school psychologist, the counseling psychologist at school. You're also working with the
Okay.
administration and the coordinator,
Hmm.
academics, on how can you best support the child to achieve,
All
their
right.
potential. So as a school
Yeah.
psychologist, you also work on that aspect. And children of
Hmm.
various needs, whether it is special needs or any other child as well, you work with all of them.
All right.
Then after that, you can, like I said earlier, that you can work in organizations. You can work
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
MNCs after you do your specialization in organizational behavior, and you
Hmm.
work over there again, helping employees build wellness
Hmm.
well-being programs. You also work on their motivation levels and various other issues that they face again over there. As a part of
Hmm.
our work, we have been providing support and working a lot with corporates and organizations as an initiative of Fortis organizational behavior program. So externally, we
Okay.
have been supporting, but you can also work within the companies if they are hiring psychologists to do similar kind of work.
Okay.
So
All
you do
right.
all of those things: stress audits, wellness programs, workshops, awareness building, all these areas.
Hmm.
So these are the
Okay.
areas that we look at. Then we also have sports psychologists. A lot of
Yeah.
young students who are already seeing us, they have interacted with the Divya sports psychologists from our department, and they work a lot with
Yeah.
sports and the mental
Yeah.
health aspects within sports. Then
Hmm.
psycho-oncology. A lot of them have also interacted with Kesha,
Yeah.
who's a
True.
psycho-oncologist with us, and she's done her bachelor's, master's, and MPhil in psycho-oncology. So, there's an MPhil in
Hmm.
psycho-oncology. Most people do not know that. So you can work as a
Yeah.
psycho-oncologist if you are very, very, interested in working with psychological aspects with patients, dealing with cancer illness. Then you can also go into art therapy, which is again very popular
Yeah.
nowadays.
That's. Yeah.
And there are so many art therapists in our department, and again, a
Hmm.
lot of them have been enjoying a lot of art therapy sessions that our psychologists have been
Yeah.
doing morning and evening every day. So
Yeah.
you do art specialization after your masters into art therapy, or you do a certification
Hmm.
course in art therapy. We provide a certified course from UNESCO, and
Okay.
that's what we do every summer and every winter.
Okay.
But this time, of course, because of a lot of changes, that is still in the pipeline, but that's what we do as well. So these are various issues. I
Okay.
think psychology is one area which is so diversified. It can be looked at and worked in integration with any other applied field. So these are the various areas that you
Okay.
can actually work on.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. And also, I think there are many fields which are coming up, like military and aviation.
Mm-hmm.
And but what about the scope of them in India per se? What about that?
Yeah, I think what we need to understand is that psychology in its own self is a very, it's still new as compared to some of these conventional work
True.
areas that we would look at, right? And it
Hmm.
is also one of, like I said, one of the very diversified subjects that can be used and applied in various other fields. So there is
Hmm.
bound to be a transition when it comes to, using psychology in various fields in a different way, and looking at its benefit and its application in different aspects. Like, for example, fashion
Okay.
psychology. Nishtha in our
Yeah.
department has done a workshop on that. She did a course
Yeah.
on that. that's something so new, right? How do you
True.
understand, various consumer psychology aspects, how you understand the aspects of, lifestyle and what you wear as a part of, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and how you look at yourself. So all of these aspects are something, again, they are new, and they are going to keep coming up, because psychology
True.
has that ability to actually extend itself
Yeah.
so much more, because you're working
Hmm.
with people, you're working with its
Yeah.
application in different aspects. So, whether it
Yeah.
is social media, whether it is aviation, whether it is defense, whether it is forensics, all of these aspects. So I think psychology is going to keep coming up with more and more integration in various fields. So when we look at their, when you say the scope, I think we have to look at it in the aspect of that this is all new and it is going to keep building up. So if you're doing
All
something
right.
new, it's good. You would be perhaps
All
one of the
right.
rare people who would be taking that up, but you always choose something that is of your interest. If
True.
aviation and psychology interests you, why not go ahead and
Hmm.
do it? You perhaps you would be one of the very few people who would have experience in it, and then you can talk about your
Yeah.
experience and you can give that knowledge to people, and then more people would be interested in taking that up.
So true, ma'am. Yeah. So, ma'am, if I talk about the skills that are required to become a psychologist, like if I have this certain skill set, then I'm right fit for being a psychologist. What about that?
So every person undergoes a training when you are becoming a
Okay.
psychologist. So you have to be
Okay.
non-judgmental, you have to be
Yeah.
empathetic, you have to
Yeah.
give them
Very
that
important.
space where you are working as an expert using
Hmm.
evidence-based treatment aspects, but at the same time you're also providing them the right psychoeducation. There is a boundary
All right.
setting that you are learning, and you are setting that
Hmm.
for the client, and which is why the difference between a therapist and a friend is that I would be working with my client in a particular setting, and I would be
Yeah.
giving that non-judgmental aspect. All my beliefs
Hmm.
and all my judgments will be at the backseat when I'm talking to my client, because no matter
Yeah.
what my client is bringing to me, my aim is
Hmm.
to help him work through that, even whether
Yeah.
I agree or disagree with something like that. That is not my belief system should not be coming in that aspect until unless it's clinically important. So if a client is saying I want to, you know consume substance, I would of course say no to that. And over
Yeah.
there, because it is clinically proven that it is going to be harmful, so yes, over there I would say
Yeah.
no. But if somebody is saying there is some issue about the relationship and aspects of that one needs to work on, my judgments and belief will not come into place. My sole
Yeah.
focus is to work with the client through all of those processes. So non-judgmental,
True.
sensitivity, empathy, using
Hmm.
evidence-based treatment, setting a boundary, all of these aspects are very,
Hmm.
very important.
Yeah. True. So, ma'am, most of the people have this dilemma that whether they should do their masters from India or abroad. What do you want to say on that?
So if you at any point in time looking to work outside, then it is beneficial that you do your masters outside, because that helps you give,
Hmm.
so for example, if you want to practice in US at any point in time, then US requires that you do a course over there in US, which is a minimum of masters. Bachelor's you can do from
Okay.
anywhere, it does not matter. But
All
that's
right.
that's part of their education, that it needs to match the educational credentials, the research aspect, and some of those that it should match the
Hmm.
educational credentials, and which is why a master's you have to do. So if you've done your master's in India, you will have to do your master's again in over here, and then pursue your work. So and it's something similar in different countries, it varies. So you have to really look at where you're going and where you're thinking perhaps you would want to go ahead and do your work over there. But then again, life
Hmm.
brings you all the transitions, and there is no age limit of
Yeah.
where you when you want to study and how you want to study. So even if you've done your masters over here and you shift outside for any other reason, go ahead and do your
Hmm.
another masters if that is required, or maybe do a
Okay.
PhD, you know and it will
All right.
help you again build that, give you that credential to work again.
Okay. So, ma'am, most of the people get confused between psychology and psychiatry. That they think that even psychologists can prescribe medicine. So, if you could just bust that myth for us.
So, as psychologists, we never prescribe medications. We do not even give our
Yeah,
opinion on medications. I think that's also a very
true.
important part of our work, of our professional work,
Hmm.
that we also know the boundaries that are there, that are important as a part of our work. So, if there is anything that
Okay.
my client is having trouble in terms of medicines, I will always tell them, please refer and talk to your psychiatrist on that. And I think he'll be able
All
to help
right.
you better, because I am not,
Hmm.
again, this is not my area of expertise.
Yeah,
So, to be a psychiatrist, you have to do your MBBS and then MD in psychiatry. That's,
yeah.
sorry, that's very, very important. And only they can
Okay.
prescribe medications, not us.
So, ma'am, what do you want to say for the job growth and scope in psychology for the ones who are pursuing it? They're often confused at whether there is scope or not. So, what about
There
that?
is a dearth of 600% shortage in our country of psychologists. So you can
Exactly.
imagine
Exactly.
the amount of scope that is there in psychology. You know,
True.
you can, as long as you're interested and you're passionate about the subject, go ahead and take it. You know,
Yeah.
you will in the process learn a lot of things. In any case, I believe any psychologist or therapist for that matter have to go through their own transition and transformation as well, as you are working in the field, because you're working so closely with people, you know, that you have to
Hmm.
go through that
True.
change of yourself as well, where you
Yeah.
understand the dynamics of the society, you understand the dynamics of relationships, you understand your own
Yeah.
self aspects. And you know, until unless you do not have a clarity and awareness on how all these
Hmm.
areas work very closely together, you know, you will always find yourself struggling somewhere as a therapist. So as a
Yeah.
therapist, you have to be open, you have to be very, very aware of various aspects
Yeah.
when you're working at, because when a client is coming to you, when a patient is coming to you, you have to look at them from a 360-degree perspective. They're not coming
True.
to you only with the problem, but they're coming to you with the
Yeah.
problem in relationship to someone, in
Yeah.
relationship to their work, in relationship sometimes
Hmm.
to even some of the stereotypes, or maybe some challenges or conflicts they may be facing as a part of the society, as part of media. So there are so many
Yeah.
things that you have to look at when you are working with
Yeah.
patients over there. So which is why I said that,
True.
you know, we are like, you know, non-judgmental detectives, if I can say that, where we're actually
Yeah.
trying to look at, but in a very empathetic way, you know, not in the interrogative way. We are not
Yeah.
interrogating, but
Yeah.
we are actually trying to understand more and more, more and more, more and more. So we are scientists in that way, which is why
True.
psychology is a very, very scientific subject. We are working as scientists over there, and we are trying to understand more and more problem from different elements, and then we help the client work
Hmm.
through that process in a very non-judgmental way again.
Yeah, so true, ma'am. So even in the new education policy, I think even there's a big role of counselors, and they have made compulsory for every school and every institution to have a counselor. So I think there'll be a big scope for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think psychology has a huge, huge scope. And like I said, it's one of
Hmm.
the diversified fields which is
Yeah.
applicable and can be used as applied, you know, in
Hmm.
different fields. So the scope is going to keep increasing. And whether you're working
Yeah.
as a behavioral psychologist, whether you're working as an economist using psychology in that in that aspect, like, you know, a lot of people have been mentioning using psychology in aviation or in defense. So there is going to be
Yeah.
a huge you know, application of psychology as a subject in different fields. So certainly take it up. I think it's always helpful. And all the young people who are
Hmm.
seeing it, I think it's very important to continue to be mental health advocates, because that is a part of
Hmm.
every individual in our society right now, whether you want to be a
Yeah.
psychologist or you do not want to be psychologist. But the fact, the kind of problem that we are actually dealing with when it comes to mental health, and the stigma that we
Hmm.
continue to fight when it comes to mental health,
So true, ma'am.
each one of us needs to be a mental health advocate, where we have more and more
Hmm.
positive conversations around mental health, and we continue to sensitize each other, even our friends, When we are having those conversations with each other, we don't realize sometimes in joke or in a fun way, we can sometimes come across insensitive to somebody's problem, which could be psychological in nature. And that
Yeah.
in itself can sometimes create that kind of a barrier again. It maintains that barrier for somebody else to talk about it. So I think when it comes to
Yeah.
mental health, we really need to be a lot more positive. We need to be very sensitive.
Hmm.
We need to be very mindful of how we are, the language that we're using when we are talking
Yeah.
about mental health related issues. And as our role, as a part of the society, each and every individual has that role to talk about it and
So
take
true.
mental health as an advocacy.
Yeah. So, ma'am, when somebody sees a psychologist, they imagine that the person sitting on the chair knows everything and is perfect. So, do you think that there are some drawbacks and some cons of being a psychologist or in that journey of being a psychologist?
So yeah, that's a myth actually. In fact, that would
Yeah.
happen. Each time I would initially, meet some of my, friends later, or my friends' parents or something like that. They would see, oh, then it's very difficult to talk to you, because the moment I talk to you, you will
Yeah.
understand, get to know everything. Well, that does not happen. We are like,
Mhm.
normally how we interact with people is how we do it. It's not that
Exactly.
the moment we begin to talk to them, we begin analyzing them. No, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we have a way, we have a scientific way of how we go ahead even with the questioning with the patient when we are talking
Mhm.
to them. There are
Mhm.
techniques to it: socratic questioning or directive questioning, open-ended questioning, closed-ended questioning. There is a way to interview a client or a patient when we are working with them in therapy. And the initial few
All right.
sessions, 1 or 2 sessions, go into interviewing. So it's not that what we do in a general chit chat. And no, we do not understand
Yeah.
and get to know about people in a general chit chat. I think
Yeah.
that's where the judgment comes in then. And if
Mhm.
I start doing that, then of course I would be judgmental. And if I am a therapist,
True.
then I have to be non judgmental, even in my outside therapy space. I have
Yeah.
to at least be mindful of that aspect, that I continue to
Mhm.
practice that. And because that's what part of my self awareness is as a therapist. So
Yeah.
there is a way, there is a process, a scientific process of how you understand a person.
Okay. So I think, ma'am, time is running up. So any message you want to give to the students apart from psychology or for psychology, anything you want to tell them?
Each and everyone, please be a mental health advocate. Keep joining hands with
Yeah.
more and more people who are in mental health and who are doing psychology, to continue to provide and have more positive conversations around mental health. Even provide a lot of peer support when you are looking at any of
Yeah.
your peers who is perhaps struggling. If you are struggling, please do not hesitate. Reach out on a helpline or to an expert. Fortis has a helpline which is
Mhm.
available in 16 languages, and it is available 24/7. Our psychologists are there always, always to help you. So please do not hesitate. Let's normalize help seeking. If you can seek help if you have a problem in your subject, if you
Yeah.
can seek help if you have a problem with your physical health, why not seek help when you have a problem in your
So
mental
true.
health, emotional well-being, which actually impacts every other aspect of your life. If you're not doing
Yeah.
emotionally or mentally well, it would impact your
Hmm.
academics, it would impact your sports, it would impact your relationships, it would impact how you
Yeah.
are dealing with your life on a day-to-day basis. So it's very
Hmm.
important that you continue to seek help. If you have members in your family who are struggling, also encourage them to do the same. That's what your role is as a responsible individual, as a responsible youth of the society, to keep doing that and keep spreading more and more positive awareness about mental health. And like I said, huge shortage of psychologists. Go ahead,
Yeah.
take it. Do not hesitate. If you're passionate about the subject, you will do well. You have a lot of opportunity, and social media in today's time is coming up as a very positive medium to also spread this awareness. So keep doing that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was amazing to have you here. And we really planned few more sessions with you, and it was really amazing. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Also, guys, we will be saving this live video so you can see it anytime. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.